Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm John Eves, the chairman of the Fulton County Board of Commissioners. I'm very pleased to be here with my colleague, the vice chairman of the Board of Commissioners. And we want to thank the press for being out here as we give you an update on where we are with the tax assessor process of assessments for the citizens, the residents of Fulton County. As you probably are aware, there are 319,000 residential partials in Fulton County, and there are roughly 28,000 commercial parcels in Fulton County, collectively having almost 350,000 parcels. And as a county government, we are empowered, responsible for doing assessment of the values of these parcels, which forms as a basis for the tax collection by the Tax Commissioner's Office. And we do this on an annual basis, and these parcels from year to year, they fluctuate, some are added and some are deleted. As you fully are aware, on May the 30th or thereabout, assessment notices were going out to property owners, residential property owners, as well as commercial entities throughout our county. Both Commissioner Vice Chair Ellis and I and the other commissioners of Fulton County have certainly gotten a variety of complaints and concerns that have been shared to us and over this past several days. Our initial analysis has discovered that there has been a spike. While there has been a 13% increase in terms of assessments, the values increasing across the county, there is evidence that there is a spike in certain parts of our county. Specifically, about 6% of folks who received assessments have had at least a 50% increase, and then 50% of those who received notices have had at least a 20% increase of their values. As I indicated, we have all heard concerns. I specifically have gotten concerns from residents. I was over in Sherwood Forest this Saturday, met with a lot of residents who live in Sherwood Forest on the southern end of Buckhead, complaining about increased assessments. I've been to Candler Park, I've been to Highland Street Festival, I've been to Southwest Atlanta, specifically in the Cascade Heights area. And to a person, the complaint has been very uniform in terms of the increased number of assessments. I believe that the most fair and practical approach to mitigate these concerns falls at the feet of the Board of Assessors, who oversee and provide the governance of the Tax Assessor's Office. And both Vice Chair Ellis and I are requesting that the Board of Assessors immediately rescind the tax assessment notices and conduct a 30-day review of their processes, their methodologies, for consideration of new notices going out in the future, near future, that are fair and reasonable for our constituents. So again, I've been working on this, equally concerned by my colleague to the left, Vice Chairman Bob Ellis, and Vice Chair Ellis will share some specific concerns that he has, and then we'll open the floor up for questions.
Thank you, Chairman Eves. We certainly all know that, a big part of what we're hearing about is sticker shock that relates to increasing values. But if it were just a valuation issue, we wouldn't be making this request. As over the course of the past several days, I know specifically myself, I've fielded countless calls and emails, and spent a lot of early morning hours looking at the specific things that the citizens and taxpayers of Fulton County have brought to my attention. And I've seen a gross number of things that have caused me concern about the accuracy of the actual assessments and the credibility of them. I've seen properties which should be frozen, should be frozen that have been unfrozen. I've seen neighborhoods which seeing dramatic increases in values, but neighborhoods right next to them which aren't seeing dramatic increase in values, land values that seem not to be bearing correlation to what's going on in that particular market, and that sort of raise questions about methodology, about the level of review that was conducted, particularly related to the parcels that saw dramatic increases. And one of the things, just with the sheer number of increases over the level of 20%, which I think even with a period of catch-up time that's assumed that's going on, that's still a pretty significant jump for all of our taxpayers to consider. And with the number of that number over 20% being at 50%, we are already starting to see a number of appeals. I don't have a number for you, but I can only know from the people that I'm talking to that are looking at appeal that are at that range and are all over the map in terms of what their adjustments were, that we are going to see such a volume of appeals that this is going to wind up in, if we leave it like it is, in a court-ordered process, that's not going to serve any of us very well. Therefore, it's as the chairman and I's specific request, we can't mandate or compel the Board of Assessors to do anything. They're an independent body, but we certainly, in terms of the citizens that we represent and all of the Fulton County taxpayers, we feel like this is our obligation and the right thing to do, to ask the assessors, the Board of Assessors, to go back, look at all of the assessments, and ensure their accuracy. We think the credibility piece is extremely important. We think transparency is extremely important. We place great emphasis on that in terms of what we have been trying to do within the scope of Fulton County government. And we feel like right now, what is before the citizens does not present that and is not a reflection of what we represent and what we're trying to do for our citizens. So we're making the request. Hopefully that the Board of Assessors will meet soon and entertain that request and provide us a response back about how they intend to act and consider our request.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And just to reiterate, we certainly recognize and acknowledge the role of the Board of Assessors and their responsibility overseeing the Tax Assessor's Office and the leadership of the Chief Appraiser. But we, as elected officials, we certainly have heard the concerns of our constituents. We are also aware that property values across the region are rising. We've experienced, again, in Fulton County, about a 13% increase. Gwinnett has experienced an increase of about 16%, and Cobb County about 12%. So we're relatively consistent in terms of the rising value of properties, personal properties, residential properties, and commercial properties. However, we're concerned about the spike that's occurring in certain communities. Again, as Vice Chair and I have both referenced, where 6% of the folks who have received the tax assessments experience a 50% or greater increase of their assessments, and 50% have experienced at least a 20%. So we are requesting, we recognize again the role of the Board of Assessors, we respect their authority, but we as elected officials who represent the diverse constituencies of Fulton County are making this request that they rescind the notices that went out and that they review, a thorough review, and take the responding actions that I think are going to be fair for all who are involved. So thank you so much, and we'll open the floor up for questions.
What are you hoping is going to come out of this ask?
Well, I think there's several things that are on the table. We certainly think, number one, rescinding the notice that went out. And I think that, as Vice Chair pointed out, there are some inconsistencies that we see based on our preliminary analysis. And so we want them to rescind and then to review and do a thorough review. I think it's important for the trust of our public to be restored. And as Vice Chair Ellis also pointed out, and I agree, that we want to be as transparent as possible. So I think at a minimum, we think that the process should be reset, and then a thorough review be conducted with the hope that we can restore confidence in the process. And hopefully whatever notices that go out subsequent to the notices being rescinded are more fair than what we think has gone out so far.
this, if the Board of Assessors does not rescind, you're independent, is court the way for people to go? What's their recourse in this?
Well, certainly for individuals, I mean, they do have the right of appeal, and we've, tried to be, very encouraging of all our citizens that if they feel like what they've received is wrong, to begin the process of, getting ready or exercising their right of appeal. So that's, that is the obligation, the right that they have, and we encourage that be exercised if they feel it's wrong. Certainly at our disposal, we do have somewhat of an ability to lessen the sting by use of our millage rate tool, which we will act upon. In the past 2 years, we've rolled back our millage rate, and when we have formulated our budget this year in what we've been operating under, we've not assumed that we were going to receive any new revenue from reassessment. So certainly there's an acknowledgement that we would contemplate a millage rate rollback when we approved our budget back in January. Obviously, we would act upon that, once the digest was ready. My point about what is likely to play out if the system is flooded with so many appeals, it could reach the point, and there's a mechanism for it, and I can't quote you chapter and verse on it, where it's likely to get forced into the Superior Court to determine how to handle it, because the flood of appeals will be so great they can't be decided and acted upon to provide any level of timely certainty to the digest. I'm sure I may have missed some portion of that, but that's generally speaking what the concern is that, given certainly with this, we are certainly going to see a flood of appeals, and it could wind up there.
And just to add to, Vice Chair, I think that I believe that rescinding and reviewing is the cleanest way to go about this. I believe that at a minimum, going back to Caitlin's question, I think that it is a step in the right direction in terms of restoring trust in the process.
With this being an election year, is there any thought that there's any political dealings in what's happening here, or is it just what it is?
I think this just is what it is. I mean, we've heard from plenty of elected officials that are running for office and elected officials that aren't running for office. And I think this is what you're hearing, and we're hearing it from, officials in the north, south, Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter the city, that we all know that what we're seeing before us right now does not appear right for our citizens. And that's what it's all about. This is not about a campaign tool or stick or anything like that. At all. This is about doing what we feel is right for, our citizens. And we feel like the best thing to do is to, do what we've requested, and hopefully the Board of Assessors will see that the same way.
Do you think there was some kind of error in the original review? Is that what you expect to find, or what would you expect the result to be if they do accept the rescinded review? What review would you expect the review to come up with?
I'm not certain what exactly the review would be, but I think certainly that there are neighborhoods that I've sort of selectively looked at or have seen where I question whether or not that neighborhoods where they've seen really huge spikes, and I question whether or not there was really a hard look at, kind of those really large jumps. And were they accurate? I mean, and the thing that sort of caught my attention in looking at some of the things that folks had within their notices were really large spikes in land value that seemed to be somewhat inconsistent, as well as just the lack of being able to sort of clearly identify what sort of comparable sales data was being utilized to drive up the overall level of assessments. It raised the question for me, was there some sort of flaw in methodology? There may not have been, and maybe it's a change in methodology from year over year, which also raises some level of concern about how that may be implemented and whether or not there should be consistency year over year in the use of the methodology. So I'm not sure what it will reveal, but just sort of the magnitude of the different blocks and the wide variety of increases, and even within a certain particular footprint, how variable that they are, suggests to me that it really merits another look by the Board of Assessors.
There are some people who are complaining that they had received freezes and
Right.
that their properties were then unfrozen without explanation.
Right.
Have you also received?
I have noticed that. I've had, multiple of those situations, which have identified that people have brought to me, and it is clear that's been the case. So that is one of the highlighted issues that you speak of right there. So.
Any other questions? Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. And again, this is an effort on the part of Vice Chairman Bob Ellis and myself, and I do believe that our entire board is concerned about this. We're going to discuss this matter at our board meeting on tomorrow, but we feel that it's we're responding to the various complaints and concerns that have been addressed to us directly, and we just encourage the Board of Assessors to act accordingly. Thank you so much.